Welcome to Vestry Day. Who doesn't want to spend Valentine's Day this way? All right, opening prayer, friends. Here we go. This is the one we pray at ordinations and, installations and all sorts of beautiful times. The Lord be with you.
And
And
also with
also
you.
with you.
Thank you. Oh God of unchangeable power, look favorably on your whole church, that wonderful and sacred mystery. By the effectual working of your providence, carry out in tranquility the plan of salvation. Let the whole world see and know that things which were cast down are being raised up, and things which had grown old are being made new, and that all things are being brought to their perfection by him, through whom all things were made, your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen.
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 All right, here we are. See how far we've gotten on our agenda already? We had our opening prayer. I'm going to talk about like why it is we're doing what we're doing. And then Vestry 101, we got a diocesan staff review. We got some anti-racism and safe church. And we've got some facets of vitality. We will have break. We'll have the first break is gonna, because we know what we always want to know our benchmarks. The first break is going to happen when I'm done. So think about that when you keep asking questions or you decide not to ask any questions. Okay.
I don't know why. Okay.
All right. So why is it? Why what we do on vestries and bishop committees, why it matters? Why it matters for ourselves and for our congregations and for the wider world. First off, I mean, you've taken the time to do this, and you offer your gifts and talents to be on the vestry, to be on the bishop committee, and you bring, what I long for is for you to bring all of yourself and for you to be there, and it's a place to connect and to be known for who you are, and to also have this, perhaps you have a longing. I know I do, but to have a longing to grow your faith and for that to continue to deepen and that you bring who you are and this longing for who and how you might be to this gathering, to this group of people. And then that group is also, that group is that you're able to connect with each other, like your authentic self connecting with another person's authentic self, and then that you have a purpose, like what you're doing for that community faith deeply matters, and it matters to the community of faith. But I also have this believing that it matters to our world. And in a time and a place where isolation and loneliness are on the rise, this is a place where we can connect and be known. And then also we can offer to the greater world, that we can offer a place of refuge and resilience. Maybe as we're kind of gearing ourselves up to resist forces of evil that might be wandering in the world and uplifting the forces of good. That's what I think. That's what I think we're doing in vestries. That's what I'm hoping we're doing. And for any of you who went to the College for Congregational Development or considering going, bringing a lay and clergy team, piece I just talked about comes from something called the group needs model. And it's how you create exceptional communities, exceptional groups that make a difference, right? You come as yourself, you have your potential, you live together, you bond, you have a purpose, and then you're making an impact in the world. And in the midst of doing that, I think that's where we get, I think that's where transformation takes place. So anyway, Be thinking about that as we're going through this, because I have this idea if we're able to do that with our vestries, then we, the people of the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan, I think we can continue to create transformational communities of faith, vital and viable communities of faith that are Christ-like and whose actions draw all of us closer to one another and our world closer to the reign of God. So let's see how we do this. The power of a good meeting. Let's see how a good vestry meeting we can get closer to each other, closer to God, and help improve the world bit by bit, meeting by meeting. And I think I take this seriously. I've seen it happen. So your agenda, how we shape our agenda, that is gonna really shape and really create your impact. So here's a graph I want you to look at. We've got the energy. It's up high on the left-hand side there, and then on on the other axes, we've got energy, low energy. The start, we've got the time, we started in our time and our ending time. So thinking about this, right? And so when you start a meeting, right, you start with lots of time and high energy. And as the meeting goes, engagement, just saying, engagement tends to fall off. So we're thinking about that, right? And our blood sugar tends to decrease, right? So that we're actually having physiological experiences. And then typically anxiety increases, right? So the question is, and we can throw this into the chat. When is it? Whoops, that didn't, if I went to look for the chat, sorry, friends. When is it that you want to have your most important conversations? And let's toss that into the chat. I'm going to go over like this. Whoops. There we go. Okay. And sadly, I'm not able to see the chat, but what are we saying in the chat?
There's early in the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, first, at the
Yay!
beginning, in
Look
the
at you guys, you
beginning,
win, right? And what does
early.
Jesus think about that? Jesus thinks do it early in the meeting, right? If he had had that conversation with Thomas in the upper room later, people would have been crankier. As it was, Thomas wasn't excited, but he kind of was, right? So do the harder conversations early in the meeting, right? Okay. Or do you really want to do them late in the meeting when people are tired and blood sugars are low? Right. So when do you want to do that executive committee meeting? Right? Do it in the beginning. Don't do it at the end. Right. Okay. And then what are going to be the most important areas in which you all engage? Okay. When you're looking at your vestry, what are the most important areas? Throw it in the chat and someone read the chat to me if you would, please.
We've got listening, outreach,
Mm-hmm.
financials, upcoming business,
Mm-hmm.
during Bible study and shared meal,
Yeah.
evangelism, worship,
Good. Cool.
pastoral care.
Yay. All right. I'm going to say some of the most important things, and we're going to hear about this later. Some of the most important things, more important than your property, more important than your finances. Some of the most
Mhm.
important things that you may be addressing, that I hope we're addressing in our vestry meetings, are our outward facing mission and ministries, right? How is it that your community faith is tangibly addressing a hurt in the world? How are you offering hope to a sad people? Right? I want you to think about your vestry's agenda that you currently have. What are the first two significant pieces that you typically address? Toss some answers into the chat. You approve the minutes. You say you approve the agenda. What do you do right after that? What do we got in the chat?
Right now we've got money, new business that includes outreach, our missional focus for the month, outreach projects, important items,
Great.
treasurer's report, spiritual formation,
Yep.
how we're doing.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So this is, this is a business meeting, right? The Vestry Bishops Committee is the church's business meeting. And what business are we in, friends? What's the business of the church?
To pray.
There you go. We're in the praying business, friends. We are in the praying business. And what I'm longing for is for our prayer at the beginning of our vestry meetings. I'm not looking for a 5-minute meditation from the rector or for the priest or somebody else. I'm not looking for one person doing something. I am longing for a type of engagement that everyone is taking part. This is one way that I found effective, and I'm going to wander through it for us, and we'll give you an outline afterwards. We can send you a sheet out as well, but I just want you to think about it. And yes, this part of the vestry agenda would routinely take 30 to 45 minutes, because what's the business of the church? Prayer. Right? All right, so here we go. You would start, right? We'd start with an opening collect. We'd all say it together. Blessed Lord, who caused all holy scriptures to be written for our learning, grant us so to hear them, read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest them, that we may embrace and ever hold fast the blessed hope of everlasting life, which you have given us in our Savior Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. And that's how we started every vestry meeting. And we all knew it by heart. It was great. All right. And then you could use any piece of scripture, but because I was always happy to get a start on what the preaching might be, we'd usually use one of the readings for the upcoming Sunday. And then we'd have one person would read the scripture aloud for the group. We'd have a couple of different versions offered. And as the person was reading the piece of scripture, we'd ask the group to think about a word or a phrase that stands out in the reading. And then we'd share the word or the phrase aloud. All right. Hey, George, do you want to unmute? And would you do me a favor? What we're going to do, friends, is George, would you be able to read this piece of scripture for us? And everyone else, I want you to be thinking about a word or a phrase that stands out to you as George, the new warden at the cathedral, reads.
The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there, and I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandment which I have written for their instruction." So Moses set out with his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up into the mountain of God. To the elders he had said, "Wait here for us until we come to you again. For Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a dispute may go to them." Then Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the seventh day he called to Moses out of the cloud. Now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, George. So we have some silence. And in the chat, put in a word or a phrase that stands out to you. Clouds stands out to me.
So some of the words are come up to me, mountain, wait for us there, the seventh day.
Mm.
A lot of waiting.
I'm so overwaiting.
I know. Glory, he went up. Clouds, glory, instructions, 40 days, devouring fire, law and commandment. Come up to me, beloved, mountain, 6 days. Lord was like a devouring fire. Moses went up the mountain. Elders, devouring fire. I have written for their instruction.
All right. That was actually kind of fun, just hearing those phrases. It was kind of it was like a little bit of free-form poetry. All right. How about now then the next thing you do is you get a second person to read the text from a different version. I would typically use the NRSV, which we just read. Sometimes I use the Common English, which is a new translation. And sometimes for the hay of it, Eugene Peterson's Message, which can be truly insightful or absolutely dorky. It kind of just depends. But how about let's do this time when the person is reading, I want you to be thinking about where God might be calling you and where in the world or in your life that you might want prayer. Okay. All right. And let's see. Stacy Salas, would you be all right with unmuting and reading this one for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
God said to Moses, climb higher up the mountain and wait there for me. I'll give you tablets of stone, the teachings and commandments that I've written to instruct them. So Moses got up, accompanied by Joshua, his aide, and Moses climbed up the mountain of God. He told the elders of Israel, wait for us here until we return to you. You have Aaron and Hur with you. If there are any problems, go to them. Then Moses climbed the mountain. The cloud covered the mountain. The glory of God settled over Mount Sinai. The cloud covered it for 6 days. On the seventh day, he called out of the cloud to Moses in the view of the Israelites below. The glory of God looked like a raging fire at the top of and I can't see that word, I'm guessing it's mountain.
Yep, it is mountain.
Moses entered the middle of the cloud and climbed up the mountain and stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
Thank you, Stacy. We'll take some silence. Okay. Think about where God might be calling you. And then in the chat, as much as you'd like to share, where in the world or in your life that you'd like prayer. And I'm feeling a call to do my best to be grounded. And I'm just longing for prayer in the midst of just what I've heard about some of the detention centers that the immigrant and refugees are being held in. When you'd like, put them in the chat.
Bonnie, do you want us to read these out too?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. God called Moses to climb higher. What does he call me to do? Peace and focus, understanding and love, how to direct my energy, prayer for helping my Hurricane Melissa neighbors. I pray that I know where God is calling me. There's so much need, so much to do. Where can I best serve? Courage. I'd like prayer everywhere. Well, anxiety, peaceful alignment, bravery, prayers for family, civility, care for those who are endangered, where my next job will take me. Patience, dramatic change takes time, good health. Pray for the children traumatized by ICE. I'm longing for understanding of how to better reach people to see the glory of God. Strength to persevere. Stepping out on faith for what he has called me to do. Prayer for my daughter who is ill, prayer for others who are ill. Verging. I'm on top of the mountain looking towards the other side. My prayer asks God to direct me down the mountain to my next service. Spreading the word that churches are a place of refuge. Prayer for healing and helping others who are in difficult situations and everything else. Love and protection of children, health, family health. How to help my child recognize God's presence in the world they see on the news. For our children, sanctuary for all.
That's a river of prayers and longing, right? Thank you, everyone. What we would do next is then, but we're not going to quite do that here, is would offer to the group, you'd offer this as we've done in the chat, where in the life or the world that you want prayer. And then what we would do is we would pray for each other, and we'd go around the group praying for the person to the right of you aloud, naming and remembering what and where the person desires prayer. And we'd go from one person to the next. So yeah, you took some notes when people were offering their longings. And then each person would pray for the person next to them. And then perhaps commit to praying for that person for the month. And then at the end, the whole group would end our time of prayer with offering the Lord's Prayer. So let's do that, shall we? Because all those prayers, I don't know about you, but the ones in the chat really just touched my heart. So let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Amen.
Amen. And it would take, as I said, 30 or 45 minutes. And I am convinced that it is the most important piece of connection and business that the vestry ever did each month. That connecting those bonds, right? So here's, and we can send this out later to you, but here's a basic structure of what we just did. There was the opening collect. Grant us the Lord to read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest. We read the passage, a word or phrase that stands out, offer that to the group, read it again. Where does the passage touch you in your life, and where in your life do you need prayer? And usually you'd ask for people to offer those two together. And we'd pray for each other. And then we'd close with the Lord's Prayer. All right. 30 to 40 minutes. And it'll be the most important part of your time together. Deepen connections, increase care. Remind all of us that we're not alone, and offer insights into the cares and joys of our colleagues who are on the vestry or the bishop's committee. Trust me, the business of the church is prayer. And now you've done it. All right, your agenda and how it shapes your impact. There we go. So pretty much what we're looking at here, we do our prayer. And then I have this thing that I would talk about is called wins and snacks. Remember the decrease of the blood sugar? Get the snacks, right? And then the wins, we didn't do the snacks in the beginning. We do the snacks after the prayer. But wins, here's this idea, and it's kind of a quick round robin, and we do it at our diocesan with my staff, our staff meetings. We talk about the things that have gone well that we've finished, right? We're not like, oh, that didn't work, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we do our own critique about things, but this is really looking at, so, hey, how did the vestry days go? Well, we had so-and-so people there. Well, they seem to be engaged. Well, blah, blah, right? And we're thinking about what each folks have done. Hey, the dean's installation, that was, at the cathedral, that was great. Oh, the press conference. Okay, that really worked. Oh, we did gather, transform, send there where people, we welcome folks. They had a transformational moment. We gave them a clear action. So you're going through and you're thinking about in your last month or so, what you've done that mattered. Maybe it was a worship service that was particularly poignant. Maybe it was a funeral. Maybe it was a wedding, right? And we got the snacks, and then mission and conversation. So, and this is the next piece there, friends, that outward facing mission. What is it? How are we going to be in the world? What are we doing? Then information and decisions. Then we're talking about buildings and grounds. Then we're talking about finances, right? And then after that, upcoming dates and action items, who's going to do what, right? Because by putting prayer and mission in conversation, the wins and snacks is kind of an interlude, but by putting prayer and mission in conversation, first and second, that's where the majority of your energy and attention goes. If you put money in the beginning, that's where all your attention is going to go. And I have never seen a church that was ahead financially by March. We're almost always behind and playing catch up. And if we do spend that first part of the meeting talking about our finances, well, the interesting thing is, friends, after that long conversation about finances or about the parking lot property, you don't actually have any more money after that long conversation. I always felt worse, but we never had any more money. All right. All right, here we go. All right, so what would it look like? Bible study and praying for each other. Wins. Here's an example of the wins. There was a 5K run. Oh, the bishop's coming. Oh, maybe it was a decent bishop's visit. She didn't go on and on. Okay, great. Maybe we had a backpack blessing and a special blessing for all of the teachers in our congregation because it's September, right? Then Werner and Archie, they had their 60th wedding anniversary, right? And then, and then we're like, everybody, we got the thank you, we wrote thank you notes to folks who had done cool things, right? Then we had a conversation about gather, transform, send, our hospitality, how we are welcoming folks, what our next steps are going to be. Then we're approving the minutes. One-on-one conversations might be that we're each person on the vestry is taking time to get to know someone in the congregation they don't know, just having a conversation with them. Then we're talking about buildings and grounds and the broken garage door. Then we're talking about finances. Okay. And then we've got our action items. Who's doing what? Okay, we got diocesan convention. All right, have we registered? Did we get the salmon or not? Are we staying over? Friday night's pretty entertaining. We have to make sure we make it. There's the contemplative prayer retreat that we're thinking about. There's the stewardship, all the saints and all the souls giving. That's the theme, the next vestry. So, see where I'm going? Okay. All right. There we go. Questions. I'll stop sharing. All right. Here we are. Questions and thoughts, friends.
Just a comment. I love the St. Stephen's Troy Vestry Gathering. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm looking at photos. Oh, look at this. I know some of those folk over there. Anyway,
Right?
yeah, I
Right,
like.
there
I
you
like.
go. They're having a watch party,
I know. I know.
and they are cool enough that they know how to learn. They know how to do little symbols on their thing. So that's
Yeah.
advanced zooming.
Wow. But
Yeah.
I do think it's so important. It didn't dawn on me until I realized all the years I've been on vestries, we all have emphasized the money, the money, the money, the money. And this sort of flips the script on that. I like that.
And that would lead to a question from me, George. I think that's a comment that I've seen a lot, that many times, Bishop, in a congregation, there can be so much anxiety around money that it becomes kind of an elephant in the room. That, oh my gosh, let's get rid of all this, who needs Bible study, all this stuff. I mean, because people really just get so worried about, will we be here tomorrow? I wonder if you might have some advice for us when our congregations do get really caught up in this idea that, money's so central.
Um, I would. I firmly believe. I and I've been at four different congregations. And one was a large suburban congregation, and they didn't think they had enough money. And in 1990, they had a $500,000 budget, right? And they didn't think they had enough money. And then I went to a working class congregation, and they probably had about $150,000 budget in 1992, and they didn't think they had enough money. Um, and um, and I was at another working class congregation, um, and they had a not-for-profit and maybe a $200,000 budget. They didn't think they had enough money. Then I went to my place in Chicago where I was for 27 years and started with a pledge income of, I don't know, $20,000 and like 30 from the diocese. And I knew we didn't have enough money. They were paying me $13,000 and I wasn't living in church housing. But this is what I know. We have the money to do the mission God's calling us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do things bit by bit that actually don't cost a lot of money. How we welcome people, how we care for people, how we exist in the world for folks. I mean, I think of Nativity's beautiful Earth Day that they have, right? And they had somebody bring in they had the goats that came in, and this woman just brought them all in for free. And then there was like a goat standing on my back, and the ASPCA had people there, and they all just came to be a part of the community. And then they had these big signs out on the front lawn. They're on that nice main highway. Some folks pulled over to see what was going on. It's when we get stuck in the money part, and I'm not saying to be willy-nilly about it, I'm not. But when we get stuck in that part, we kind of crouch and we're inward focused. And the other thing is, friends, we pretend that we're a not-for-profit and not a community of faith. We are not in this by ourselves. God is in the midst of this with us. And that is the part I want to keep emphasizing, Chris, is that we're not in it alone. And I think we can all take the next best step. And I think someone had a question about the mission, say more about the mission and ministry. I think about, gosh, I'm thinking about two different St. Michael's right now, right? I'm thinking about St. Michael's and All Angels in Lincoln Park. And the amazing presentation they did with a collection of other communities of faith to their city council, asking for a hub for social services at the city council. Like you might have an entrepreneurial hub, you would have a social service hub. And they brought that to the city council, and I went to be with them. I don't know if Paula Mill is on the call or not, and so I might be bungling this, but when I went to the city council, when Paula and her Presbyterian colleague Kara, I think, Kate, when they were presenting, there were 30 St. Michael's and All Angels people behind me with red t-shirts in Lincoln Park, being very clear about their care for their neighbors. Right. And I can only imagine that discussing how they would do this, how they would create the survey they had in their community to find out what people's needs were. That's mission and ministry conversation in our vestry meetings. And then there it is showing itself. When I think about St. Michael's Lansing, right, and going out to their gun buyback, not quite like Disarmory Ministries, Chris, which you guys at St. David's are like on it, and have been to various different places. But there they were. They have someone who's a retired sheriff in their congregation. And so the sheriff's department is there. The city, law enforcement folks from the city of Lansing were there. I don't know if Tim Flynn's on the call, but he can also correct me if I'm getting details wrong. But they had money, and they were buying back everybody's rifles and guns, and it was before Christmas. And I swear to God, there was the minivan that showed up with 20 long guns.
Wow.
20, and they had two kids in the back seat. But those people walked away with good money for their Christmas gifts. That it's like that type of planning, that focus, that's what enables us to not be so focused on our internal existence, but rather how we are, as I said earlier, the risen body of Christ in a sore world. Yeah. What other, someone keeping track of questions in the chat or other questions? Dennis Redford, you got something, friend?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I had a question regarding a congregation that may not have a lot of funding, a lot of money, maybe has been working in the red for years. How do we balance having an outreach and mission-based platform, but also have the need to take care of our internal finances so we can continue to exist in the future?
Well, Dennis, I think that's what I was really just talking about.
Yes.
Money follows mission. Money follows mission. If we prioritize, mission doesn't follow money. I've seen places that had lots of money but didn't do much. Or what they did was internally focused for the folks who had already wandered through their doors. Right? Like they loved what they had, and if someone came through their doors, they might like it. But Dennis, I lived this in several different places. And everything always felt slightly precarious. And we kept following where it is God is calling us. And how we live that out. And the money to pull off what we did, just barely, it kept coming. And I would sound naive and silly if I hadn't lived it and I saw it. I mean, you really don't need a lot of money to do ministries, right? We have lots more resources than money. We have us. I don't know if that's helpful for you.
No, thank you. Thank you. And maybe some things I should take offline. I'm just so interested. I've been in worshiping in this faith for so long, and especially in the Detroit communities. I've seen I've seen it go from being so vibrant and so, large, and being able to give more. And now I've seen it decline in the last couple of decades. So that's my concern is making sure future generations have places of worship with the Episcopalian faith.
Yeah. And I hear that. I hear that. I think we're definitely the inheritors of people's dreams from before. And God has given us what we have at this point in this time. And I think it's our call to use what we have at this point in this time and to keep wanting more, and to say this isn't enough is kind of idolatrous. It's like, this is what God has, right? And so here we go. The other piece just to think about is sometimes we say, oh, we used to be big and now we're small. The Episcopal Church's attendance chart literally mirrors the birth rate of the United States of America. So, I mean, I'm one of 4 kids. I don't have any kids. I did the same thing. I asked everybody on my staff, like, how many siblings do you have and how many kids did you produce? Right? And so our attendance actually mirrors the birth rate as well. So there's a part where we don't have to be like, oh, but I do think there are plenty of people who we can connect with, who have holiness happening outside their church walls because they're not with us. But if we connect with them, we can learn from them. And perhaps in this time of isolation, they may want to be in community, because all of this is so hard to do by ourselves.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else, friends?
This is really interesting because I just got finished setting out an agenda for my first meeting as the warden, as
Yeah.
the senior warden. And I'm thinking now of pulling that back, draft agenda, and thinking, I'll talk to the dean and say, we'll see what we can do to sort of reformulate what we do. Because as you were, before you started talking about mission, I wrote down mission drives budget. And in looking at the analysis of the budget, how many of us have a lot of emphasis on evangelism and outreach more so than about gas bills? I mean, that's important. But I was looking also at our annual budget and realized that we have a lot of emphasis on a number of things, but not a lot on the things that matter most, as I'm hearing now. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, and we're going to hear more. Uh, Ellen Ekevag, my Canon to the Ordinary, who is really excellent on all things congregational development. She's going to be giving us some very interesting information about what drives vitality in congregations, and it's data-driven information. And George, I think if we look at our structures, we're kind of designed to get what we are getting.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? If
Right.
we are designed to uplift an institution and not the mission of Jesus Christ,
Yes.
then we're going to be uplifting the institution and focused on the institution and not the mission.
And to that point, I was basically repeating what past agendas look like because that was the experience.
Yeah.
And you can't continue looking at the past, moving towards the future in order to the future. So
You don't drive a car looking in the rear view mirror.
that's right. That's right.
And if you do, you crash the car.
That's right.
You crash the car. And I have another piece on the paralyzing anesthesia of nostalgia.
I'm going to mute because I'm
All right. Right. But these agendas can help us structure our impact, can begin to flip and reverse what we're doing and what we're focusing on. The agenda is an outward visible sign of God's call to us. And if it's just about property and money, at least if that's the top things, right? And if outreach is the thing that and the outward focus is the thing that comes after we take care of the money. And I lived this, and it's hard because I had a building that was falling down. Every time the bishop came, he's like, when are you going to get this thing fixed? Right. That's my best bishop impersonation. I can only imagine your best bishop's impersonation, but it's like focus on the mission and ministry, and it'll come. But this is the other piece, friends. It is bit by bit, right? How long did Moses sit in that cloud waiting for God? This might be my sermon that'll drop tomorrow morning. How long did he sit in that cloud? It was forever, right? And then there was the big fire. And then what did he do? He went back into the cloud, what? 40 days and 40 nights, which is biblical forever. It's a bit by bit. Yeah. And I think Katie Strach there, right in the chat, she says, I think we have a unique opportunity to show what Christianity is at this very difficult time. And we need to be using ourselves as ministry. And that doesn't require money. Mic drop, friends. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I mean, if I can say a little bit more on that.
Sure.
I mean, Christianity has a bad name,
Yeah.
and and people think that we are something that we're not because of what is projected in the media, because of what is, just because of what is out there and all of the Christians who profess hate, kind of. And so I think that the Episcopalian church has the ability to kind of rewrite our own narrative and to create safe spaces for people. And I believe that that messaging and that outreach and that ability to provide an alternative church to people, I think people are longing for that because people are hurting and they are confused and they are, they're desperate for something to be hopeful for. And we have a unique position to offer that to them. And I don't think that requires money. And that's all. Sorry.
There you go. Thank you, Katie. All right, friends, what I'm going to do, because again, with Ellen's presentation that's coming up and the other ones that we're going to hear from my other folks, this is all, Dean's got some stuff, Sister V's got some stuff. We're all focusing on what is this vitality that helps our viability, right? So we're going to talk more about that, but I'm going to go back to the thrill of screen sharing one more time, and we'll see how well, again, this plays. All right, share. Oh my God. Oh my God, it worked the way I wanted it to. Okay, cool. There we go. All right, here we go. Who are you gonna call, right? All right, who are you gonna call for what? All right, here we are. Here's my staff. You're going to call me if you have any emergency event in your congregation. Friends, if you call the cops or the fire department or the rescue, if you call me or text me, just let me know you've done that. I want to know, right? Clergy pastoral care, thinking partner. I adore congregational development. I think stewardship, fundraising, and capital campaign are contact sports that are fun. I adore these things. Call me. I am more than happy to assist. And anything you've got exciting that's happening in your church, call me. I wanna know about it. All right. Okay. There we go. Sorry, I'm not, stop that. There we go. Holly Angel is my executive assistant. If you want to get on my calendar, which is an event, usually it takes a while. You need to call or write Holly. You need to, if you want to schedule time with me. If a visit confirmation parish event that needs some coordination, Holly is the person who manages all things calendar. She's in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And clergy people, active clergy, to schedule your annual birthday chat, be in touch with Holly. All right. Here we go. Canon to the Ordinary, the Reverend Canon Ellen Ekevag, resources, coaching and thinking partner, specifically on congregational development, but quite frankly, Ellen can help you think about most things. Special congregational projects, mutual ministry reviews, diocesan processes, fresh start, which we would actually call leading with impact. That's for new clergy in our diocese or clergy in our diocese taking a new call. For the College of Congregational Development, or friends, if you have no idea who to call, all right, or email, contact Ellen. All right. Susie Schaefer, the Reverend Canon Susie Schaefer, Canon for Transitions and Formation, clergy transitions. You're retiring, your priest is going someplace else. You are a clergy person and you're feeling a longing to go someplace else. Let us know. We can help you. Commission on ministry, right? Feeling a call to ordain ministry. Whitaker Institute programming, lay licensing, preacher license, worship leader license, and all diocesan liturgies. Susie Schaefer is your person. Okay, the Reverend Dean Aponte-Safe, new to the staff since the last vestry days. Small congregation of vitality work. Total ministry, shared ministry, lay leader support and formation, Whitaker Institute programming, environmental justice, climate care work. Okay, and we're going to hear, we're hearing from Dean, I think, later in this call. Hopefully I didn't make that up. Okay, there we go. Whoop. Okay, the venerable Tim Spanis. He's my archdeacon. If you're interested in the diaconate, local formation, commission on ministry, Tim can help you. And Tim comes on about half of my visits modeling the diaconate. So you'll, and I know you guys, many of you know Tim. All right. Okay, the Reverend Canon's sister, Veronica Dunbar, Veronica Mary Dunbar, anti-racism, civil rights pilgrimage, which we're going on one next week, where we go to Alabama and we go to Selma and Birmingham and Montgomery. It is amazing. We go each year. There's some scholarship money available for it. Friends, you really want to go. It is a transformative event. Repairing the Breach, reparations, indigenous ministries, and the Advent and Lent book study. Okay, and Sister V will come on out to your congregation, help you look at amazing issues of race that usually are confounding to many of us, but to really ask the hard questions and have gentle answers that can be transformative. Canon Carmen Piggins, Canon for Ministry and Young People, resourcing young people's ministry and congregations, diocesan trainings, godly play, Forma, camp ministry, youth events, Safe Church, End Gun Violence, Michigan Diocesan Youth Council, camp, and she's also the campus ministries liaison. And Carmen can be out in your congregation. She's running. We've got Night Watch coming up, which was one of my most favorite events, an overnight at the cathedral. Let's see, then what else? Dennis, communication support for congregations. He can help you with your website and your social media and your audio, video, and direct mail. And he's doing all of that for us. The weekly connection is coming out with Dennis, event registration forms, diocesan website updates, digital resource, PowerPoint, event recording, everything. Dennis does that internally for us and is available to assist you with these very important issues. And they're fun. Yep. Susan Mason, the Susan Mason. She's the diocesan program administrator. Guys, you may know that like fully 1/3 of my staff was at one point or another my admin, and they just keep getting promoted beyond me. So Susan Mason is now, and she's change of canonical residence, archival support, any of the questions regarding diocesan events, convention, College for Congregational Development, administration for our standing committee, and for the other committees, trustees, diocesan task force. Susan Mason is your person. She also happens to be the canine to the ordinaries, best friend forever. And so they're very tight. If you go on the website, you can see pictures of my tally sitting at Susan Mason's desk at her chair with little glasses on, working Susan's computer, because, she is an Australian Shepherd. Crystal Ramirez, Director of Human Resources, Church Pension Fund, all things benefits, all things medical and dental, group life insurance, long-term, short-term disability, background check, payroll. All right. Chris Ventura, Chief Financial Officer, Budget Assistance, Growth and Income Fund, Treasurer Questions. And Chris will be doing a whole session later on in the year, fan favorite for treasurers and wardens, right? To just go over through all of these things. Also, if you have questions about the parochial report, then Susie Schaefer and Chris Ventura are your people to assist you with that. Kara Chapman, longest person on my staff, been here for a good long time. We all know Kara. She's great. General accounting questions, Trethaway Downs, children's fund, billing, just those things like, how did this happen, Kara? Kara can help you. Okay. Tony Perez, newer to my staff, congregational property support, diocesan property management, rental and leases support and coordination, property grants. All right, Tony. And Jamal Dillman Hasso, he's our archivist and historiographer. Requests for records, closed congregations, baptismal, confirmation, marriage. He can help you also with all things at the Bentley, where a number of our archival records for the Diocese of Michigan are stored, but by no means all of them. But he is able to help with those things. Okay, here we have the canine to the ordinary, canine Tally Perry, discerning suitable treats, designing agility courses, and I might add pretty much cleaning any treat you might want. And then lastly, Jasper Perry, he's actually, friends, he's been promoted. He is now the associate shepherd. He's no longer in training, but between you and me, he still needs help. But if you need a soulful look and love and a cold nose to touch your warm hand, then Jasper is going to be there for you. I was recording my sermon that'll be aired yesterday morning. I brought Jasper with me. He climbed right up into the pulpit at the cathedral, laid right down. He's like, all right, this is the part where she talks for a while. All right, then when we leave, we'll get treats. That's Jasper. All right, who do you call when? Let's put the answers in the chat. We want to rent our building. Who do you call? All right. Our young people want to stop gun violence. Our priest is retiring. Our clergy person was admitted to the hospital. All right, we want to rent our building. Who do you call? Put your answer in the chat. Tony Perez. That's right. Right. And remember the other answer, right? There we go. Tony Perez. And if you're confused, right? Call Holly, my admin. Call Susan Mason, the diocesan admin. Call Ellen, right? But Tony Perez is the right answer. All right. Our young people want to end gun violence. Who do you call? Carmen. Absolutely. Carmen. Yes. Yes. Turns out I also have an interest in that, but yes, absolutely. All right. All right, Carmen and the bishop. See, look at you. I can help with any age too. That's it, Carmen. Right? All right, here we go. Susie, not as much. Okay, our priest is retiring. Oh, yeah, no. Oh, so I see your head, Ann. I get it. Okay. All right, yes, Susie. Absolutely. Susie and the bishop. Well, it's good to know. Yes, I would actually like to know that. All right. Our clergy person has been admitted to the hospital. Who are you calling? Yes. Please. That'd be great. All right. Next round. All right. We have an amazing food pantry that serves 500 people a week. Is there some money to help us buy more food? Who are you going to reach out to? Okay, Kara, possibly. Who else? All of the above. I'm going to go with that. Jaden. All right? Absolutely. Here's my tip. Here's my top tip for everyone on the call. You're unlikely to get the money if you don't ask for it. But if you ask, then your possibilities go up. All right, who do you call when we're going to have a capital campaign and we need a line of credit? Who are you calling? right? I'm good, right? I'm liking C. All right, starting with the standing committee, but I'm going to have to sign off on it too. Anytime you're encumbering your buildings, which a line of credit is, right, you need standing committee's permission, right? And let's just say there might be, like, that maybe in the life of our diocese, there may be some folks who have thought D, but we don't think D anymore. Okay. All right. All right, then what do we have? All right. All right, there we go. All right, and I have a feeling, let me look. Come on back. I love that. We're back. There we go. That's what I got, friends. All right. Any other questions? All right. 10-minute break. We will reconvene at 10:25. Okay? Thank you so much. And if you have questions come, toss them in the chat and we'll do what we can to answer them, all right? See you in 10. And we're back. And Jasper's here now. And Tally, we got a little, there we are. Yes. Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. Hi.
Hey, Taylor Wedding.
Hey. And I'm gonna now turn it on over. Thank you for coming back.
If it's being
I'm gonna turn it on over to Canon Ellen Ekevag and go from there.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good morning. If you could go ahead and mute, that would be super duper. As we're going to continue on, I want to point you to a couple of things in the chat. Susan Mason, application deadlines for social service grants and advocacy grants are due March 2nd. So if your church is thinking about experimenting or doing something new in the community, take a look at those. She's linked the website, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to her. Also, Carmen linked her webpage for all things young people to see what kind of opportunities are going on in the diocese. Our next presenter is Sister V, who's going to tell us all about how to get anti-racism training. Sister V, take it away.
Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Oh, I cannot share my screen.
Please hold while Dennis allows you to share your screen.
Okay.
It's hard, Sister V, but I have faith in you.
I'm laughing because I.
Okay. And let's see if I can get this to work properly. There we go. All right. So, our diocesan anti-racism curriculum is part of our ongoing spiritual formation in order to become beloved community and to just care for one another. And this is how we equip ourselves to serve those we encounter in our neighborhoods, in our pews, and in our outreach ministries. And it's also an essential tool to learn how to pray and how to act in the way of love. And it's basically meant to be it's laying the groundwork for lifelong formation. So taking the anti-racism curriculum is not the beginning and end all, it's just the beginning. And it gives us a start for our conversations. It is canonically required, and it was reaffirmed in General Convention that this is something that we all need to do. and that acknowledges that the work of dismantling racism is an essential part of spiritual formation, and it's also an essential part of who we are as people of faith. And so General Convention says that the lay and ordained leadership of the church are expected to engage in ongoing spiritual formation and education focused on racial healing, justice, and reconciliation as part of our church's commitment to becoming the beloved community. And who needs to do this? The General Convention says that it's all lay and ordained leadership of the Episcopal Church, including all clergy, all of our professional staff, all those elected or appointed to committees, commissions, agencies, task forces, and boards. So if you are in a leadership position within the church, it is the expectation that you will engage in anti-racism training. And this falls into the 4 quadrants that the church has recognized as part of becoming beloved community. And that is truth-telling, proclamation, formation, and justice. So this is the formation quadrant. This is how we learn where we've been, how we got to where we are, and how we can better move forward in loving one another and becoming beloved community. This is designed so it's, I understand that people are really, really busy. And so this has been designed in 3 modules. The first module kind of covers the broad history of racism in our context here in the United States. Module 2 narrows the focus a little bit into the legacy of historical racialized injustice within the geographic area of our diocese. And module 3, we all read the same resource, which is Stephanie Speller's The Church Cracked Open, and it's about us getting outside our doors and engaging in our communities with, the knowledge and background that we've gained through this study. The 3 modules, they include books to read, they include some podcasts, they include some videos that you can choose what you're going to engage in. This is not meant to be really burdensome at all, and it's there to kind of also not just to educate, but also hopefully, kind of stimulate your curiosity and to recognize and identify what you might want to learn. So these are the upcoming dates for the anti-racism curriculum for this year. So the end of March, we'll be having our concluding conversation via Zoom. So each module, after you've engaged in the resources and the materials, we come together and we just have an open, facilitated discussion on what we've learned. And that concludes each module. So the first conversation for module 1 for those resources will be toward the end of March. For module 2, toward the end of May. Normally for module 3, it would be in September, but this is my sabbatical year and I'll be gone in September. So we'll be wrapping things up for module 3 in November. So this is the schedule if you're doing this individually. If you have a small group or your vestry or your congregation wants to do this as a cohort, please email me and ask, and we will schedule something. We can also even tailor the resources for your context so that it's relevant to what you're doing in your community. We can do those if you want to do this as a vestry or a cohort, as a congregation. We can do them via Zoom. We can do them in person if we can schedule that, or we can do a mix of both. I just finished one with St. Paul's in Lansing, which was lovely. We did the first 2 units on Zoom, and then we did the module 3 in person. And I even, was willing to preach that day to give Karen a break. So if you want to schedule something like that, please let me know. We can do that. And a really quick update. We talked about the 4 quadrants of becoming beloved community. Formation is where the anti-racism curriculum comes in, but we're also focusing on truth-telling. And that is where we are talking about reparations right now. Where we stand in our reparations program, we are in our truth-telling phase. And so we've looked at truth-telling in our current climate as an act of faithful resistance. And we're striving to gather our stories in their fullness, in their completeness, so that by understanding where we've been, we can better discern where God is leading us. And truth-telling within the steps of becoming beloved community is one of those things that leads to reparations. So by understanding our history, we can better recognize and repair the harms whose legacy remains with us today. And that brings us to looking at our archives, which I started doing last year, and which Jamal Dillman Hasso has been wonderful in helping us do. But your individual congregations may have archives and archival materials that you have that are not at the Bentley Library in Ann Arbor that you guys can start looking at. We're also looking at this year collecting some oral histories, because that fully fleshes out the stories that we can tell about our congregations and overall about our diocese. And so if you have interest in collecting some oral histories in your congregation, please contact me, let me know. And if your congregation, as part of an anniversary of your founding or whatever, if you've already got a congregational history done, please let me know. We would like to collect those of us who are on the reparations steering task force, and we want to use those as part of our truth-telling in those steps to becoming beloved community. So that is my update on both anti-racism training and where we are in our reparations program. As always, please just drop me an email to let me know what you need, what you would like to learn about, and any way that I can support you in what you're doing in your ministry.
Great. Thanks, Sister V. We have a question. Do we attend both sessions, such as 319 and 321, or is it the same content on both days?
It's the same content on both days. So one is a weekday evening and the other one's a Saturday morning, just to accommodate people's schedules, whichever works for them. So just one of those.
Okay, great. What are the last two of the 4 quadrants?
So, okay, you're going to really test my memory here. So there is reparations is actually one of the last quadrant of the becoming beloved community.
Which
so
would
we
be
have
justice.
truth-telling, we have formation, then we have proclamation, which is how we preach and how we act in our community, and then we have reparations. So those are the 4 quadrants.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Sister V?
What book are we reading for Lent?
We are reading Church Tomorrow by Stephanie Spellers. It was just published in December, and she did interviews across the nation with people about how they're engaging with their spirituality and how the church can respond to those hungers and those needs that they don't feel are being met right now.
And when is she going to be in our diocese?
She will be in our diocese for a conversation and a book signing on April 29th. So we will be meeting in Barth Hall. We will be having a panel discussion in our cathedral.
Excellent. You guys, she's going to be, Stephanie Spellers is stunning. I find her writing to be really accessible and completely applicable. So I'm going to say, mark your calendars for this. It's going to be a great opportunity to fangirl.
Great. Also, we have one question. Those dates, is it all virtual for the anti-racism training?
Yes, that is all via Zoom. But if you have a cohort in your congregation that wants to do it in person, drop me an email and we will try to schedule that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sister V can also come out and facilitate in your own place.
Also, Sister V, can you give the time on October 29th? Is it a Wednesday?
April 29th. April 29th when Stephanie Spellers will be here. It will be in the evening. So I'm still in contact with her, nailing down the time. We're probably looking at sort of late afternoon, evening, so that people have time after work to make it.
Okay, and it's a Wednesday.
It is a Wednesday.
So we'll have lots of more information coming. You know, if you haven't subscribed to the Diocesan newsletter, highly suggest. Highly. In fact, Dennis, can you put in a link where people could subscribe? Or if you don't want to do that, just send Dennis an email or just chat him right now. It's where you're going to find all the information about all the things that we're offering and all the resources for your congregation. So super duper helpful. Next up, we've got Carmen Piggins, Canon Carmen Piggins, who's going to talk to us about Safe Church. Carmen.
Happy Valentine's Day. My gift to you is a Safe Church training. So I know that this was all what you were hoping for. So I am the diocesan coordinator for Safe Church, and Safe Church is really just a helpful tool for norming and creating constant norms and language for how we operate as community. It helps to keep our youth and our vulnerable adults safe. And so it's really important that we all do it. If you are on this call right now, you should complete Safe Church training. You are required. So if you're on vestry, if you're clergy, if you're in leadership roles, it is expected that you complete Safe Church training. And you may be asking, Carmen, how do I do that? And I'm happy to show you that we have tried to make it as easy as possible. And we're still working on that. So on our website, if you go to edomi.org and then you go to your resources and forms, there's a Safe Church tab, and you would click your Safe Church tab, and then you'll scroll down. If you're looking for our diocesan policy, you can find it right here. And then if you are like, I cannot think of anything that sounds harder than trying to do a Safe Church training by myself, there is an option that you can do it as a group training. So if your whole vestry or your whole congregation wants to get together, you can throw the modules up on a screen, and you can do them together and talk through the prompts together. That is completely acceptable. If you choose to do that, I just need to know so that we can document it for you so that it's in your records. So all you would do is click here to fill out the congregational group completion form, and it would take you to a form stack. And then you just tell me what modules you did and who was there, and I get it uploaded to Presidium for you. If you are like, I can't think of anything harder than sitting in a group and doing this training, you can do it at home by yourself. Get a snack, get a blanket. It takes about 2.5 to 3 hours to do all the modules total. And there are step-by-step directions on the website for how you log into Presidium. So it tells you where to go. If you need the code for your congregation, you can find it here. And then if you're not sure what you're supposed to do, it tells you, we have a sheet that tells you all the modules that you need to create based on your position in the church. So all of that information can be found on our website. And the modules, to take all the modules that you'll need, it takes about 3 hours, but they're also, you can complete them one at a time. So if you're like, I have 20 free minutes, just do one module and then get them all done as you can. And if you have any trouble, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We have tried our best to make Presidium work for us, but sometimes there's still problems or it's a little hard. So if you're having any issues with Presidium, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll help navigate it with you and solve any of the problems. We are looking at trying to schedule an in-person training, like a diocesan in-person training later in the spring, but we don't have a date set for that just yet. So like I said, please reach out if you need any help or support, but you're welcome to do group trainings. You're welcome to do individual. If you are a person, if you, as a vestry, you're expected to complete this training. Any people working with youth or children in your congregation are expected to complete this training. And then our clergy and basically folks in leadership are expected to complete this training. And the one thing as a vestry, I would love to just give you a quick, which you will learn when you take this training. But as a reminder, if you have any programs with children or youth, if you have, if they're in a room, there should be 2 adults in that space. So this is just like quick, friendly reminder. Anytime that there are children or youth that are separate from the rest of the congregation, there should be two unrelated adults with them. So as you're kind of going through your congregation, if you notice that that's not happening in your nurseries or in your Sunday school rooms, or in your youth groups, that's something to address with your leadership, because that's for the safety of both our children and our adults, just to make sure. So that is Safe Church. I think there's some questions in the chat. Ellen, can you? You're muted.
So it's 3 years, is that right? We have to do it once
Yes.
every 3 years.
Once every 3 years. So if you took it last year, you're good to go.
Okay.
Unless you're just a big fan of camaraderie and you're like, I want to do it again with my new vestry, you're welcome to do that. But once every 3 years.
Great. Dennis, can you post or put the link in the chat for how people directly get to the Safe Church site to sign up?
I got it. It's right here.
Oh, look, Carmen's so on it, guys. Isn't that amazing? Okay. So Sylvia, so someone other than you can lead organized safe church training for a group at church.
I can support you with it, but also if you put up the videos and just have someone basically run the videos and do the questions, that is also fine. That would count the same as you doing it on your own. You just have to make sure, what I recommend is making sure I get those names so that we can input it in the system for you. Because I basically then create accounts for everybody and give you a digital record. And also, if you let me know you're doing it ahead of time, I have like paper certificates and materials I can send to you, so that way you can keep a church record too. But that would be my recommendation for having a group. Like if you have a vestry group or a Sunday school group that you need to do.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Carmen?
Oh, one more thing. So sorry. If you talk with your clergy, but also we should have each congregation should have one person that has access to like look at your records. So to be able to see who's completed it in your congregation. And so I made all of our clergy able to do that and a lot of our parish admins. But if no one is able to access it from your congregation, please reach out to me and I'm happy to do that. If you're looking for the code, Kate, it's on the website. There's let me see which step it is. There's directions. There's a link under step 3, and that gives you all the congregational codes.
So you got to find your congregation.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a
it can be a bit of a thing.
Yeah, we're constantly working on trying to make it easier.
Yeah.
But
Can you talk us a little bit about the modules, like which ones are optional? How do we find that out? Do we need to figure out how to do a summer camp in Texas?
you are not required unless you speak Portuguese to take any modules in Portuguese, or Spanish. If that is something that would be fun for you, you are welcome to do that. And the modules that you need, because this is we do not control Presidium's interface, so I cannot like prioritize models as much as I would like to. So if you go, another file you have to open, but I'm going to show you
Can
really
you share
quick.
your screen so we can see you?
I'm doing that now.
Okay.
So on the website, if you go to either step 8 or there's buttons here, but there's a whole list. It should be coming up. So there's a whole list where you can just look for your position. And so like if you're clergy, it tells you what you need to take. If you're in the ordination process, if you're a vestry or bishop's committee, so we'll look at this one. So you would need to take all 4 of the universal training modules, and then you would need to take all 4 of the specialty trainings. And then you'd also need to look through the model policies for vulnerable adults and then children and youth. And these are more just documents. They're not really like full-blown modules like the other ones are. And so when you go to these modules, it'll be videos and there's some questions that you work on that kind of do check for understandings. And each module takes about 15 to 25 minutes, depending.
Okay. All right. Oh, look. Dennis put in the direct link to find your code for your parish. That's a fun game. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right. Any other questions for Carmen? Or Carmen, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah. I am happy. I know that this is kind of the onboarding time again as people are like getting on vestries. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if something isn't working quite right or if you're having a hard time or if you need support. I am here. I am happy to try to help the best I can. So, but just please, I know that this can feel like another to do, but it is really important community work that helps us to keep our youngest members and our vulnerable adults safe, and it helps give us shared language. So it is something that we really need you to do and take seriously as you're doing it.
Great.
I can tell you, friends, that when new people who have not been hanging out in the Episcopal Church, and you talk about how we always do safe church, that's one of our policies, and how we interact with our kids, I can tell you how impressed they always are, right? Because it says how much we care. And Carmen, thank you. It's not always easy or fun. But I think the new modules are great. And just thanks for your good work. And thank you to all of you to really offer your time so we can create that community.
Yeah. Great. Oh, does anybody on staff know about Beloved Community Training? We may host one. Thank you, Cynthia. She might host one at the Church of the Messiah. Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right, everybody just stretch for a minute. We're now going to go into a different phase. Just get the blood. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the exciting world of congregational vitality. And what we're going to talk about comes from the vitality work we've been doing in our diocese, and also data that has been collected, in two spots. First was a literature review done with a colleague in the Diocese of Atlanta, Sally Ulrey. And then Sally Ulrey has been doing data research in her diocese. So I'm going to talk about some of what she's finding. But that's just to say, I've invited her to come to Michigan next, so that we can enlarge in her data set and we can get more information. So let me share. Please hold while I share my screen. Okay, please. Okay, I'm almost there. All right, can you see it? Is it seeable? It's saying it's okay. There we are. Congregational vitality. Woo. Okay, very fine. All right, let's talk about it. So in this, we're going to talk about what is congregational development and vitality. These are a great questions. What are those facets we need to be looking for? And about CCD, which is shorthand not for Christ Church Detroit, although also CCD. CCD is also our shorthand for the College for Congregational Development. So this is what we're going to talk about. And I'm really hoping, my intent here is that I want to be helpful to vestries so that you know what your work is and what to be looking for, as we're just in a world full of volatility and chaos. Like, how we're going to find our grounding. How are we going to keep following God's call in the midst of this? So let's just talk a little bit about what is congregational development. Congregational development is the development of congregations of, what do you see there? All sizes, all locations, and all conditions to be more faithful, healthy, and fruitful. Faithful, healthy, fruitful. And when I say fruitful, think fruits of the Spirit. Think they will know us by our fruits. Think effectiveness, right? Think impact on the world. All right. This is what we're doing. And I just need to see a nod of heads. Do you see how it says all sizes, all locations, and all conditions? This means it's for every congregation. God is always asking us to grow and develop. And for ourselves, let's just admit, God's always asking us to grow and develop. So in this presentation, you're going to see a couple of models from the College for Congregational Development. And I want to talk about what is a model. There is no model that is going to explain the mysteries of God or the universe. Models are just lenses we put on to be able to look at our congregations, right? To really say, like, what's going on here? I like to think about models as having like a magnifying glass for the Holy Spirit, where we're going to be able to see like what is God's calling to us in this, or models to help us work on the health of our congregation, like how we deal with conflict, how we have difficult conversation, models for like where is God doing God's transforming work around us right now. These are what models are. So I can't see my chat, but if there is a chat, can someone on staff just let me know if there's questions anytime? Put a question in the chat, please.
You're okay right now.
Okay, thank you. So, so in congregational development work, we do make an important distinction between vitality. Vitality is about identity, purpose, and impact, and how faith is expressed dynamically through worship, community, leadership, and outward engagement. That's vitality. Like, we are vital in the world. We are having transforming experiences. And viability. Viability is about capacity, resources, finance, buildings, and systems that support your ministry. You can also call it the functional, right? The viability is about like the function of your place. And what our research is showing, let's see, did I put that in here? Shows that vitality and viability do not automatically correlate, right? You can have a place that has a huge endowment, right? So they're fine viability wise, but they're not doing the vitality work that they need to do, right? You can also have places that are doing amazing vitality work, but they also need to work on their viability to support those ministries. So what this is saying to us as vestry members is that we need to work on both. Vestries normally, I think, my suspicion is that automatically go to just viability work. And so thinking about the agenda that the bishop presented this morning, my suggestion and invitation is how do we more intentionally look at our vitality, how we're doing vitality work? Make sense? Questions? Okay. Vitality. Now we're just going to focus on what is vitality. Is not something that just congregations create through their effort alone. It's something they notice, receive, and respond to as God's life takes shape among them. In other words, in this work, God is already among us. God is not elsewhere. God is already up to something at your place. And our job is to notice it, receive it, respond it, and continue working with God towards that vitality, right? So we're never alone in this work. And my core belief is that at every church, there is something that's working and to build off strengths, right? So now I want to talk about what are these facets? How should we think about vitality in our places? Okay. The first facet of vitality, if you're taking notes, and also you will get these slides, is something we call congregational vocation. Okay. And I have a model for that. You're like, Ellen, we're shocked. I know. Work with me. And this model comes from the College for Congregational Development and Frederick Buechner's quote, which many of you might know, "The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet." And so what it's saying is that there is some deep gladness. There is some identity, purpose, personality that congregations have. And then there is a matching kind of impact on the world that we want to make, a world hunger that we need. We also call this the outward focus. And when those things come together, that's like the mojo of God's call. So if I was drawing this on newsprint, I would put lots of bright colors around God's call. For those of you who know me, you know I love a good newsprint, right? So let me just go to my next slide. So the key ideas here are identity, articulating a sense of who you are as a church, the gifts you have to share the world. Like, I know we all have these, but can we actually articulate them? Like, can we actually, in a conversation with a friend, tell people why we are so awesome, which we are. Let's just all admit how awesome we are, right? What my church is doing, right? What's the transformation that I'm experiencing there? And the purpose, why your church exists and what it's there to do. All for the purpose of really having this outward focus, serving and being in relationship with neighbors. Now, in our early research, what we have found is that if a church has an outward focus, this is a predictor of church growth. If they are super clear about their outward focus, this is a predictor of church growth. And kind of getting at this whole idea of congregational vocation is largely the focus of year B at CCD. What we also found out is that if congregations are merely just doing some internal work, they're like, we know who we are, and our purpose is like, we just love our worship and we just love each other, but we're not clear about our outward focus, it has a negative impact on church growth. That's what we found. So if you're thinking about it in those terms, we need to have our identity and purpose for our outward focus. That's going to lead us into what is the thing that we're known for in our places? What is the hunger that we need to meet in the world? What is the need that we need to be focused on? So please hold. Show meeting. Hold on. More. I don't know why you can't see your chat. Oh, no, I do. Guys, I'm doing things. I do see my chat. Okay. In the chat, I'm going to give you a bunch of questions just to kind of like think about where your church is on this. Okay. Now we're going to see if this works. Everybody pray. And it's not working. Awesome. Okay. Love that for me. All right. So instead, I'm going to tell you, and then I will email you all these questions later. Are you ready? So kind of think yes or no as I'm asking these questions. Think about your church. So just like bring your church into your field. Okay. For deep gladness, can you articulate the personality and gifts of your congregation? Can you articulate them with easy to use language, not insider language? Do you know the stories that shape who the congregation is today, and can you name its values? Can your congregation articulate what is distinct about the Episcopal tradition? Are you able to communicate both externally and internally what is compelling about your church? So just think on those questions. Here are the next questions for some outward focus. We are known in our town for at least one outreach we do, or one way we contribute to community life. We know the three biggest challenges facing our immediate context, our neighborhood. Like, we've gathered data about that. We know that. Have we intentionally gathered information about our surrounding community in the last 2 years? Just to kind of think about where your congregation is with this facet of vitality, right? It's like, can we really articulate it? I always find that when I'm traveling around the diocese, the Episcopal Church is always the best kept secret. Guys, I don't want us to be the best kept secret, because we're amazing and we're offering authentic, real, like ritualized worship, community, when people are so hungry for that. And I know we like to be modest, right? That's great. But this is not a time for modesty in our world right now. We need to let people know there's a Christianity that is about love and acceptance, right? injustice, right? Like more now than ever. Okay. Okay, I'm not going there yet. Please hold. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. So, oh my goodness, who did that? Now I'm looking in the chat. Someone amazing. Carmen Piggins. Carmen Piggins, thank you. So those are, you can copy and paste those if you like. That would be really interesting just to do with your vestry. Like, where are we on these things? Like on a scale of like 1 to 5. 1 being like, we have no idea. 5, we're like amazing at it. I want you to just think about your church for a minute. Think about congregational vocation. And if you have an idea, put in the chat what you think your church is known for in its community. Just what you think, what do you think your church is known for in your community? And just put it in the chat. Being welcoming. The overnight shelter at our church. Yeah. Rise Against Hunger, House for New Americans, food program. Trunk or treat, yes. Love and acceptance. Blessing box. More loving, less judging. Okay, that could go on a sign, guys. This is what I'm saying to you. We're gonna get in some sign businesses. Yeah, free tax preparation program and VBS, serving our neighborhood, right? Lynn, we will help you copy and paste, or we'll just get Carmen to send you an email with all those things in it. Being community, housing, ending gun violence, being welcoming. It's on a sign and a shirt. Mama Tutu, yes. Providing amazing musical programs and opportunities, right? Like, here's what I'm saying, guys. We are doing the things. Free lunch program, right? Like, we got to get better, and we will talk about this at the college, or I'm happy to talk with you anytime about it. How do we articulate? We worked on, I think some of you know, we did a billboard leading up to Christmas. Who knows about our billboards? Anybody? Everyone's like, no, Ellen. Well, we did. We did some billboards, and I think they were kind of amazing, but we're going to work on, like, I like to call it public witness. How do we let people know who we are? How do we really begin articulating who we are that is different than from what people tell them Christians are, right? That we reclaim our theological space as being faithful people. Congregational vocation, vitality. Deborah, thank you. I do love them. Okay. Are we any questions about congregational vocation? If not, I'm going to keep moving. And I'm going to find, look, I'm sharing again. Look at us. We're doing amazing. Okay. The next facet. Okay. Now it thinks I'm doing all kinds of hand signals on my Zoom, and I don't know how to stop it. Okay. Is what we call transformational experiences. That is what is God up to in your place? How are people being transformed at your place? Right? Yes. And let's be clear, God does the transforming always. But what are we doing? Are we like doing stuff that's like getting in the way of that? Are we listening and working with God so that people who come in can really experiencing the transforming love of Christ? And you're like, Ellen, do we have a model for that? And my answer is, of course we do. Of course we have a model for that. And this model is called Gather, Transform, Send. And it's this simple. Like, how do we gather people? How do we think about how we're creating a threshold of experience when people walk through our doors? How are we welcoming them the minute they get in the parking lot? What does our signage look like? Right? What are we communicating? How are we welcoming people? How do we orient people in worship? Right? How do we create easy on-ramps for them to participate or to receive the sacraments? How are we doing that? How are we gathering people? And then the transformation of our hearts, minds, actions to live our baptismal identity and purpose through worship, through formation, through belonging, through action? Are we doing stuff that's like getting in the way? Are we working with God? Where is God's activity like really happening and people are experiencing transformation? Can we build off that strength? What is God's call to us? How do we respond to it in order that we are sent back into the world, right? Having received this transformation into our civic life, our work life, our family life, back into creation, right? This is the purpose of every church. Every church's purpose is to gather the faithful so God's transformation can happen, so we can go back out and live out our baptismal vows in the world. What makes each of our churches different is the context that we do that in. What is the context of your place? What's the culture of your place? What are the needs of the surrounding community? What is your context, right? And so this is the purpose of the church, right? Is these transformational experiences. We gather for God to do God's transforming work and for us to notice that, right? To be discerners of the Holy Spirit, to be sent back out into the world. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a concrete way with Carmen about particularly some kind of, Carmen, is this fair to say, like some things to think about as we want to welcome children and families? Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair.
Are you ready for the next slide?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to focus particularly on transformation in this model. And I want to start, this is a picture of my son. And I want us to think about what does this look like for our youngest members. William attends a lot of church, probably more church than a lot of us attend. He goes with me to most services. And this starts young. He has a love for church. He has literally like cried and thrown a tantrum when he has not been able to go before. And he gets excited. He wants to be a part of it. And I want us to remember, like, it's these small moments that can be so transformational for every member of our church, and particularly for our youngest members. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be flashy. And you don't have to like completely overhaul what you're doing. A lot of times it's doing what you're already doing and doing it well and figuring out how you invite everyone into it. And so this picture just like is my favorite. This was at Gerardo, which I think your whole vestry is together on the call. At Pastor Gerardo's installation at St. Stephen's Troy. And William was so excited to get to watch this, to get to see the different parts of the service. And then just like sheer joy when he got to go be with all the clergy for a minute. And so I just like want to remind you that it's small things, it's little things, and it's just like sharing the joy and love of God with our young people that can be so transformational for them. So when we think about transformation, particularly through worship, there's really easy ways to do this. And I want to like remind you each church is different, each context is different. So what might work in one setting might not work in another. And this is not meant to be like go and overhaul everything that you're doing right now, but maybe here for like listen for one thing that could really work in your context, or look for one way that you could create more welcome and more access for your young people. And so how are we providing opportunities to engage with worship in developmentally appropriate ways? So are there tools that support their engagement? So are there things, and often as an adult, when you hear tool, it's going to look like a toy to you, but it's actually supporting the way that they're able to participate in worship and access what's going on. And so it could be things like instruments or like ribbons, wrist ribbons. I know at Incarnation they're using those. And the young people can use those during music. So they can use them to kind of help them participate in the hymns going on during worship. It could be a toy communion set. And William loves to do this. He calls it Moonion. And he uses the toy communion set during the Eucharist, and it helps him to learn through play of what's happening in front of him. And it's made him genuinely like very, very excited when he gets to have communion. He has probably tried to bull rush a few of your communion lines. And and I've seen it when kids can learn through play, they get so much more engaged. And it's a reminder that these are tools that actually support. Hey, Ellen, can you go to the next slide? Sorry, was looking at my slides. There we go. But yeah, it helps remind us that it's actually tools that can support their engagement. And it's not meant to be a distraction, but it's actually meant to be a way that they can engage in a way that's appropriate for them. Um, and then it could also look like having things like crayons and papers, but specifically to do prayers of the people. So they could write or draw their prayers of the people and take those home to pray throughout the week. Or you could use them in the next service as a addition to your prayers of the people, but giving them ways to access worship. If you could think about maybe your context, could you drop in the chat something that could be a tool that you could provide for your young people that would help them access worship and make it more engaging and transformative for them? Yes, yeah, being able to see what's happening. So I like to remind people like choice is really important. So a lot of our congregations have spaces towards the front of their sanctuaries that allow kids to see and be closer. And they also we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second too. But yeah, being able to see and being able to have space where children can actually be a part of what's happening is so important. Yes, recruiting to liturgical roles at an appropriate age. That is super true. It's coming to the having the children go in the front of the congregation and show what they've created and have pride and be a part of the service. Yes. Yeah, these are all beautiful ways. And there's things like and some of these things are like universal accommodation. So having a couple bulletins that have larger print is really helpful for your young readers and probably for some people that maybe need more support, that have trouble seeing really small print. And then having like highlighters or there's different items that you can use that can help kids follow along with the bulletin or little stickers to mark when something's occurred. And these are really easy ways to create accessibility without having to like completely overhaul what you're already doing. Ellen, if you can go to the next slide for me. So our next when we're thinking about transformation is formation. So how are we being formed? What does this look like? Who is your formation primarily for? How do we create accessibility and how do we create choice? So I have a picture here. This is a program called Disciples and Dragons. And at St. John's Plymouth, they're actually doing this as an intergenerational or all ages offering. And it's basically Jesus-y disciples Jesus-y Dungeons and Dragons. And I think Pastor Chris is on the call, but we've been doing it with some of our youth, and then they've been doing it intergenerationally. And it's a great way to engage people of all ages. And it doesn't have to just be targeted at like one person or one age group specifically. And we've seen that when you're looking at your formation, a lot of times our formation for our youngest people actually occurs during corporate worship, which can be really hard. And so if their only formation is occurring during corporate worship, then they're not actually getting to be a part of worship either. So it's thinking through your timing of things, and maybe that's just making sure that you're creating access so that children can also participate in worship in addition to Sunday school, right? Or when you're looking at when you're providing formation, is it time frames that work for everyone? Are you doing things, or do you have offerings so that there is enough? Because if you're doing all of your evening programming at 7 p.m., then most of your folks with children are thinking about bedtime, right? That's not really a great time. So thinking about timing of when you're offering things, are you offering a variety of timing? Are you Are you offering a variety of options? Is your formation separated by ages, or is it separated by interests? And just thinking through how you can create more accessibility for everyone in that case. And then next slide. And when we think about belonging, I think this is the biggest one, right? I think we see it in the picture with William looking at all of our clergy. And it's just creating on-ramps. A lot of the things that you guys mentioned in the chat, that's our creating belonging. So creating on-ramps and entryways for children and youth to participate in the life of the church. Are they giving access to your ministries? Are they being invited to usher, to be a part of the altar guild, to be a part of to be lectors or to be acolytes? Are there options? Are you asking what they're interested in? Or are you just like saying like you are 8 and now you are an acolyte? And just making sure that there's choice, because just like adults like choice, our youth and our children also like choice. They like to be able to do things that match their interests. And they like to be able to feel like they're contributing to the life of the church. And so it's also thinking about when we talk through creating belonging, does our language foster that? Does the language that we're using foster belonging for everyone? And I have here, there's a pew card. A couple of our churches have these. This one's from St. James, Birmingham. But there's a pew card that just reminds parents and families kind of like, we are so happy that you're here, and kind of here's what families do. And then reminding parishioners of what it looks like to be inclusive of all ages. And we know that sometimes, if I have attended your church with my small person, we know that sometimes they make noise. And it's supporting our families and our young people of like, how do we support them in that? And how do we create ways so that children start to learn how to be a part of the church, right? And learn how to worship, and understanding that that does come with noise and wiggles sometimes. And then I just have a couple of pictures. So we have our youth at Night Watch being lectors, and that was like, I mean, it was stuff that they were already doing in their congregations, and then they got to come and do it as part of that service as well. And then this is also one of my favorite pictures, but we were visiting a congregation, and he kind of sat down in the middle of the aisle and started doing his trucks, and the usher sat right there with him and just started playing trucks with him for a minute. And like that small act as a parent was like so huge for me, because it was seeing the simple ways and the simple actions of just like someone seeing you and helping. And that's so like for a lot of our parents, it's just being seen and valued. And yeah, Deborah, I do want to, a lot of times these on-ramps and these entryways are universal accommodations. So they're things that we actually should think about for all of our members. I'm speaking specifically for our youngest members in this particular section, but I would love if we thought about our members of all ages, right? And a lot of times these accommodations, and I'm happy to share some slides from last year too, but we talked about ways that a lot of times creating accessibility for one group actually creates accessibility for everybody. So adding in things like rocking chairs or adding in ramps or those actually creates a lot of accessibility for a lot of people. And so as you're thinking through, what I would challenge us all to do is think about accessibility for our youngest members, and then how that accessibility, if done in a way that's supportive of them, actually creates accessibility for everybody. And I think that that's just like a thing as we're thinking about transformation, when we really invest and we really think about how we support each other, it changes things. And I've seen it like when there's intentionality and there's kindness, it goes a really long way. And people notice it. Our families notice it. Our young people notice it. And they can tell when they're being valued and when they're being heard.
Great. Thanks, Carmen. I do want to, I'm going to go back to just our thing. That is to say that, of course, transformation, I think we were getting at this too, Carmen, is not just for our young people, but all of us. Like all of us yearn for God's transforming, and it matters about context. In other words, if your church is situated in a retirement community, right? do you all think that let's just think about this case for a minute. Where should a church be thinking about transformation if their context is a retirement community? Where should they be thinking about how their people are being transformed? With what part of their generation? Or who's by what? Does that make sense? Like, are they going to focus on children? Who are they going to focus on in their context? You can put it in the chat. Right? If you're in a retirement community, right? Seniors, and yes, look at us, older adults, right? This is why context matters, right? And a lot of times people will say, at every CAT survey we do, Susie, are you on?
Yep.
What is the first thing that people say?
Make necessary changes to attract children and families to our church.
And what do we say to that?
That might be your vocation.
Yeah. It could very well be your vocation, but why? Why do you want to do that is often our question, right? And a lot of times people will respond with, for us to survive. This goes back to our congregational vocation. Your survival is not compelling to outsiders, right? We want to be places that have transformation, to really think about what are we offering folks to be transformed by God in our places, and how do we set up for that? So in the college, we work on this in both year A and year B, and we have ways to really think about and to gather data about how God is transforming our place, where the Holy Spirit is actually moving, where we might want to focus attention on, and thinking about that in terms of our context. Okay. Questions about that? And I can't see the chat, so if anyone could tell me if there's questions about that.
Yeah, I was just going to add, this is community work and it's good for everyone. It's good to think about all ages and all folks. And if you want to think specifically about your young people or kind of intergenerational, I have some diagnostics and tools that I'm happy to come work with your congregation and kind of dig into specifically what could be helpful for you. So happy to do that.
Right. And another thing about this is we're thinking about congregational development, congregational vitality. It is rare that you have to reinvent the wheel. We have resources to help you. So just reach out and we can figure out what is it that your place needs, or what is it that you guys are feeling called to, and we can resource you to do that. Okay, so the third facet of vitality is what we're calling discernment and organizational practices. And this is about how are we church together? Are we healthy? How do we handle conflict and disagreements? Are we clear about our decision making? What are our practices that promote the body of Christ, right? Where are we putting our energy first when we meet as a vestry, right? This is what I'm talking about. So the key ideas here is what we have found that increases vitality. This is from the early set of data, is shared leadership, that leaders collaborate and make decisions together and share responsibility for actions. So in other words, is the clergy person meeting with the wardens before the vestry meeting? How do you work together? Do you all have clear expectations of each other? How do we do ministry together? And the way that we do ministry together is different for all sizes of churches. Just it looks different depending on organizational size. So this is all the things. And then the other piece is called discernment practices, which is what are our intentional practices for listening, experimentation, reflection, and adaptation. And this is the other predictor of church growth. And it is largely the focus of year A in CCD. Right? So how is it that we're praying together? So the two predictors that Sally Ulrey found for church growth was the outward focus, and that churches have these very clear discernment practices about how we, and in these discernment practices also, how are we doing conflict? How are we listening? How are we listening to the congregation? How are we listening to each other? So this is what we mean by discernment and organizational practices. I forget what I have next. Oh, so here's some questions just to kind of think about your place. Think about your church. Do you begin with prayer at your meetings, at every meeting you have? Do you have regular ways of listening to the congregation? Do people feel safe giving honest feedback? How are we at giving and receiving feedback? How do we gather data before making major changes? Do we have shared norms for how we handle disagreement? Can we disagree without damaging relationships? How are we good at experimenting with new ideas? Because experimentation is kind of the name of the game right now, just to try a thing and then to learn from it. Success or not a success? Do we learn from our mistakes? And do we hold each other with a sense of grace? Are we caring for each other through that? Or are people being like judged and talked about, which happens from time to time. I've been in a lot of churches. But these are the kinds of questions to kind of be thinking about, like, how are our discernment and organizational practices in terms of our vitality? Where might we want to spend some more work and getting clarity? One of the biggest pieces, I'm going to hand it over to Dean quickly, but is what we like to call the appreciative stance, which is so an appreciative inquiry, just a stance in what is working at our church has so much impact. So an appreciative inquiry, what they say and the research shows is what gets talked most about is the direction that organization goes in. So if at the top of your leadership, you are always talking about what we don't have and scarcity and all of these other things, all the problems, which we are set up for, which Dean will go into, that then what the research says is that it will predict that your organization will decrease with what is talked about. Instead, if we talk about what is working, if we build off strengths and we just assume good intent and we make adjustments and give people grace, but accountability, graceful accountability, and we're like going about what did we learn from that, that then your organization is actually going to grow in that direction. And so it's so important. And I think the mystics say the same thing that the appreciative inquiry people do. Like what we focus on is the direction we grow. Right? Just individually, just as a community, just in our own souls. And that is not easy in this dumpster fire world. I know that. And we have to become places where we're going to continue to value our humanity, care, and love, and for people to be able to find stability and grounding in this moment. And so how we shape our communities and our expectations is going to matter a lot right now. Our discernment practices are going to matter a lot. And so Dean is going to give us, I've seen it. It's a beautiful presentation on appreciative stance. I'm going to stop sharing. Dean, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Give me a second. Okay. Here we are. Are we good? Okay, cool. So, thinking about friends, as we have been talking about, right, the vitality and the viability of our places, right, and all of the work, the good work that we are doing as communities of faith in this coming year, I invite us as communities and as leaders of communities, right, to ground all of our work in this sense of appreciative mindset and appreciative stance. We hear from Philippians in the 4th chapter, right? whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, right? If there is anything worthy of excellence, think about these things, right? That is part of the call of the Christian life, right? And part of the call of the gospel, that we work to build each other up, that we work for equity, that we work for love and justice and peace. And as has been threaded also, right, throughout our entire time together this morning, right, like we live in incredibly difficult times, incredibly polarizing times, right? Politically and socially, we are being primed, right, for negativity as we watch what is happening in our world. How many of us doom scroll at night, right? We engage with social media, right, with algorithms that are primed to feed us content, right, that build off of our fear and our anger. It seeps into, right, our online discourse, and as we have conversations with our neighbors. And neuroscience indicates, right, that our brains respond more intensely, right, to stimuli that is perceived as negative. And that response, right, like this is a both and moment, right? Like this response matters, right? Such fear or anger based responses, they keep us safe, right? They keep us out of harm's way. It helps us to pay attention to our gut when we recognize, right, that something doesn't feel right. Something feels wrong about this. I think, particularly in this time, right, like we can separate appreciative mindset from positive mindset, right? And as communities of faith, it matters, particularly now, that we as leaders curate, right, and we build space for our community's anger, right, to be heard, lamented, and processed. That is also part of the work of the church, right? Like how we attend to the grief, right, and the fear that our communities are feeling and working through. And, right, there's a flip side to that. As Ellen pointed out earlier, living in negative bias can also impact, right, in deeply serious ways, our ability to be in community with each other, right? We become what we talk about and we live the stories that we tell, right? And that shifts, I think, in some ways, our community. Before joining Bishop's staff, I served a very social justice conscious congregation who were very aware and attuned to, right, the injustice, the grief, right, the lament of the world. And as they, right, did their work out in the streets, right, I was really mindful of how do we hold together as a community, right, without letting that anger, right, seep into how we operated as a community of faith. And so there are ways in which, right, as vestries and as leaders of our settings, we can build a sense of forward movement, right, by using appreciative mindset. We can express our gratitude for each other, right, and we can build a sense of cohesive community even across our differences. And because, right, we remember and experience negative stimuli so strongly, research suggests that for every one negative comment received, 5 positive comments are needed to shift our focus away, right? If we receive a negative comment and a positive comment in the same day, right, which one do we go home thinking about? I know which one I do. And so in the coming year, right, I invite you all as leaders in your communities to practice giving each other, right, fellow leaders, members of your congregations, positive feedbacks and compliments, right? Do it abundantly, lavishly, and joyfully, even and particularly when it can be awkward. Celebrate, right, the good things that you have going on in your places. And just some examples, right, of what this can look like. We can use appreciative inquiry in a variety of settings, right? In our vestry meetings, in worship, as we debrief, right, and think about ministry events that we've had throughout the year. in vestry meetings, right? For example, I really liked it when you raised this question above the waterline because it's not something that we think of often, and that felt important, right? That you brought that to the community. Or one of the things that I admire about this body, right, is our ability to build consensus, right, and wonder together. In worship, right? I saw our congregation come alive when a lay preacher gave a really amazing sermon, right? Like, worship is something that we do incredibly well in the Episcopal Church. I think we have a really great track record of compelling and profound worship. And so build on, right? Like, what are the things that we do well? What are the things that we're proud of? And then in debriefing ministry events, right? I was impressed, right, when I saw this. Or one thing that I'm grateful for, right, was when this happened. And so I invite us in the chat, you're welcome to drop some examples of when do you feel appreciative inquiry and mindset would be useful in some of the events, right, that you're considering in this coming year. And then to close with why this matters, right, and why this is important. As the bishop says, right, vestries are one way that we show up as the body of Christ. Appreciative mindset, it helps us to move from strength to strength. It acknowledges individuals and times in the community that are important, right, and names why they were valued. It helps us to continue to live in a space of curiosity and wonder, right? Particularly when so much in our world wants to shut that down. We want to live in spaces of certainty. It keeps us open to what could be. It acknowledges the mustard seed, right? The power of starting with something small. Something that I say to my congregations in my care all the time, right, is I see you, I value you, I hear you, right? No matter how small, you are making a unique and important contribution. An appreciative mindset also helps us to build a common purpose, a chord, and it can help us to move towards consensus. In a time when everything feels, right, a lot of things feel fractured and scattered, right, appreciative mindset can help us to feel, right, that we are moving toward building a culture of gratitude, of trust, vulnerability, and care. And this also matters because as vestry leaders, right, your community that you serve in is also noticing your influence and your action. It's an important reminder that all of us, right, as leaders, we have power, right, as leaders of our communities in what we say and what we do. So how you share and how you speak, right, also affects how your community thinks about itself, how it shows up, right? And they will likewise respond. And so living from a place as we go forward in our ministry, right, that does our best to embody this sense of appreciation, right, this sense of goodwill, and builds on the things that we're doing well. I think that's an important part of how we discern and how we move forward as communities. So that's what I have on appreciative mindset. Are there any questions? Okay, I'm finally getting to the chat. Yes, when outreach is successful, when we try things, our weekly newsletter, writing thank yous, during the annual meeting, absolutely. Yes, noticing when we feel the Spirit moving, 100%. Great. Awesome.
I love the 1 to 5 ratio, Dean.
Yeah, right. Indeed. Great.
You're muted.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
So just to review quickly, and I have a slide, but I'm just going to say it out loud. So our 3 facets of vitality for us to think about or to begin to kind of marinate on is this idea of the congregational vocation, our identity and purpose that then shapes our outward focus, right? And having a clear outward focus, being partners with God in these transformational experiences, right? In worship, in formation, in action, in our life in the community, right? And then these discernment and organizational practices. How are we together? How do we want to be together? Where do we provide listening? How do we help people have deeper relationships with each other? How do we talk about our faith with each other? So those are our three facets. The college can help you with all of them. So year B is largely focused on congregational vocation. Transformational experiences is both A and B. And then these discernment and organizational practices are really year A in the college. But before I go into anything college related, any conversation, questions, wanderings, insights, ideas, and tips about these facets of vitality? I realize it's 11:44 and some of us are getting hungry for lunch or have Valentine's Day plans. I mean, that would be great. Okay. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. Nobody is alone in this work. We actually have each other, which is a great, great gift. Okay. Please hold. I'm just going to go through a few things real quick. Oh, hold on. Oh, there we are. Okay, there you see the three things. Okay. So what is the college? Great question. It's a summer intensive. And hear me when I say the word intensive. It is intense. It's going to be July 12th through the 17th at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul. And you can commute or you can get downtown overnight accommodations at some delightful Airbnbs that the Susan Mason will be picking out for us. So who is CCD for? It is for clergy and lay leaders. It is for everybody. Best practices, clergy plus 1 to 6. I don't know, 3, 2. Who can do it? I mean, it is a week long, so it is not always the easiest thing. But then you take it back to your place and you start building your community of practice around these elements. You can also participate individually, both clergy or lay. You can also do that. It is a 2-year intensive. Days are generally 8:30 to 6 p.m. Well, hopefully or a little earlier than 6 p.m., but there you go. So the 2026 Summer Intensive is July 12th through the 17th. We begin Sunday at 5 p.m. and end on Friday at noon. Again, I said it's at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul. We are doing year A this year. So we're going to be talking about transformation, how to figure out where transformation is happening at your place, and these discernment and organizational practices to increase vitality. The cost is $350. It includes your materials, your meals, your resources, and even the overnight accommodations if you need them at no extra cost. We have trainers that come both from inside our diocese and from all over the system or all over the country, really, for other dioceses who are doing the college. If you have questions about the college, if you're like, this is for me, give me a call. Give me a call. We'll have other ways of getting some college information to you, other ways to teach models. Coming up, we'll be forming other communities of practice. But really, one of the goals here is to have a common language among us so we can talk about these things and become more faithful, healthy, fruitful, and effective. So this is our offering to you. Bishop, do you want to say anything about, I'm going to stop sharing. Do you want to say anything about the college or any of these things?
There was a question in the chat about when the registration opens, and Susan, did that get answered in the College for Congregational Development link you dropped in?
Yeah, it should be open. Yeah. It is now open, they say.
Friends, it's wonderful material that I think each time I dip into it, I learn something else. It is wildly applicable in very different situations. And one of the things you're gonna see more and more, you're gonna keep hearing about it because we're gonna keep using it in lots of different venues, organizational development models, congregational development with Anglican theology and spiritual wrapped and infused through it. It is, I think, in my now 35 years of ordained ministry, I think it is one of the most significant pieces, tools that I have come across. So, and we have some folks are incredibly knowledgeable about the material. So it's good. It's good.
I want to say one more thing about these facets of vitality. I think often we can get overwhelmed by how much we need to get done in the church. And I just want to say for your vestries, I really want to invite a season of priorities. Like pick 1 to 2 doable things. Break everything down into even if you're like, I have this big idea. During that mission and conversation portion on your agenda, break it down to what is our first step, right? What is the first step? So that we're not getting so overwhelmed by everything.
Bit by bit, friends, just bit by bit, and understand, we're not a not-for-profit. We are a community of faith, a practice of people who believe and who doubt, but who are gathered because at one point or another, we have had an experience of Jesus Christ in our midst. So bit by bit, we're not in this alone. And this is a time more than ever for us to be the church and to be the body of Christ.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Bishop, I think that's what we have for everyone.
Woohoo! What I would love, dear friends. Oh, and the dogs are excited now. They're like, ooh. Because don't get me wrong, they love a good Zoom. They love a good Zoom, but they like a walkie walk even better. Thank you very, very much. I take seriously your gift of this time. So thank you. And I long for all that we're doing. I long for you to be who you are and for it to touch your soul. And that we can come together and make a difference in the world that needs us. And for us to be really aware of the world and to learn from it. Because God's out there too. So, yay, thank you. And I'm going to say we finished 8 minutes early.